Dear students, as always, it is a pleasure to greet you. In previous session, we talked about the executive summary, the origin of the business, and the nature of it, to identify the basis of the international business plan. In this occasion, we will know in detail the implementation plan that establishes the basis for preparing the plan. Within the development of a business plan, it is important to identify the management model that will need to be applied to identify the proper functioning and operation of the business with its adequate administrative and management support. In the same way, just as a business idea requires a strategic analysis to determine in projection in the future, it is also necessary to determine what the business formalization process will be, with the determination that it will operate in compliance with all current regulations and avoid legal problems. Finally, it is important to identify and plan to identify the actions that need to be carried out to turn the project into a business ready to operate. In this sense, a management and implementation plan must contain the following parts: definition of the management model, legal and formal requirements for the constitution of the business, and identification of the implementation schedule. A management model is a set of parameters, rules, and organizational policies that will serve to ensure adequate agreement and coherence between all the various components of the company. For this, the following steps can be followed. Select the organizational structure model to apply. Identify various positions that the organizational structure will have. Set the functions to be performed by each position. Identify the organizational competence and identify the competence by areas and or by positions. Identify the profile of each position. And finally, determine the number of people needed for each position. There are many types of organizational structures. Enrique Loffat, in his book Organizational Charts and Organizational Manuals, Fundamentals for its Elaboration, enunciates several types, within which the following have been extracted. Next four, next four models. First one, pyramidal. That it's the traditional and widely used type of organization. It is generally used in stable markets with few or the same type of clients. It is oriented to the specialization of the tasks, being able to be functional by geographical areas, by clients, by product, by process, among others. Metrics, in which two types of complementary managerial levels are brought together, for which one will form multidisciplinary teams. It generally combines the functional with the market, products, clients, process, or services. It is also requires high doses of coordination. Hospitals, academic institutions, construction companies, among others, usually use matrix structures. Cellular structure made of a structure made up of organizational units named cells. The cells must fit within the strategic, operational, and/or tactical dimension. The cells can have a certain duration. It may not interact with other cells. A model may be the companies that develop projects which create specific organizational units that will remain in force for the operation of the project. And finally, networks. The interrelation of organizational process as an axis of total integration of the organization. It seeks a holistic integration between shared and integrated process. Establish multi-purpose work cells that form a network, which can have connections with suppliers, customers, and even competitors. For small or local projects, a functional structure may be best. I say the first one model. To the extent that the project considers a wide range of products, goods, or services that that aren't necessarily complementary. It will be necessary to find a more complex organizational structures that allows for greater business fluidity, but at the same time determines hierarchical levels. After choosing the type of organization, the ideal organizational structures for the project must be designed, for which two factors will have to be considered: that it be flexible enough to adapt to the market and its changes. Sometimes it's very necessary in the first months of business, and determine specific roles and responsibilities. The organization charts may consider support areas such as administration, accounting, finance, credits, treasury, logistics, maintenance, technical support, or human resources. Likewise, you may consider advisory areas such as legal advice, economic studies, strategic planning, innovation, market research. Regarding the line areas, the following can be considered: operations, productions, commercialization, foreign trade, sales, QA, projects, projects, projects management, management of claims. The size will depend on the level of operations that the business requires to provide a good product and the project's spending capacity. An excess of charges represents excessive and sometimes unnecessary expenses. However, a charging defect can use an overload or, or duties and responsibilities. Reaching balance, considering value, attributes, and competitive advantage is the challenge in business design. Next, is important to determine what the functions will be that each position will perform. For this, it is necessary to identify two types of functions: general and specific. General functions are usually those tasks shared by all positions in an area or general area for all positions in the project. The specific ones describe the tasks that will correspond exclusively to each position. Depending on the complexity of the project, this job description should be detailed. The next step is to define the core competitions for the organization or core competence. Competence can be the set of knowledge and skills one must have to accomplish a certain objective or task. Then, to define the competence of the organization, it will um, it will be necessary to take into account the vision and mission of the business, the attributes of value and competitive advantage to offer, and the strategic objectives of the project. For example, if the business vision is to be recognized for the quality and novelty of the products, the organization's competence will be research and development, analysis and foresight, experimentation and learning capacity, among others. Likewise, if we were designing the construction area of a construction company, the competence could be communication capacity, supervision capacity, inventory management, analysis, and decision making, for example. This competition must be shared by all the members of the area. In general terms, it is recommended that there not be more than four organizational competence and no more than four competence per area. Next, the profile of each position must be defined, which will identify the specific requirements that the person who will fill the same must fulfill, being able to consider mainly training, technical, university, postgraduate experience by general experience or a specific experience, and most important, how many years they have for experience, and competence, knowledge, and skills. It is important that the job design is properly planned and analyzed, since errors at the end can generate performance or capacity gaps that, when closed, will represent additional cost for the company. Even the impact can be greater if the staff needs to be renewed, which will generate recruitment costs and a period until the replacement learns the function and tasks. To complete the profile, it is necessary to determine the number of people that will be required to occupy said position and what is their salary. The number of people will depend on the demand for the service and or the estimated capacity. For example, if the area is to open a if the idea is to open a restaurant, it is known that there should be one waiter for every four tables. Then, if you expect to serve 20 tables during lunch, then we will require five waiters. Increasing or reducing this figure may affect the quality of the service or increase costs. The salary will depend on the decision uh, of the company regarding the remuneration of the staff. That is, one can offer a salary higher, similar to, or lower than the market average. The decision will depend on the specialization of the position, the required experience, or the combination of both factors. To determine if this salary can be covered by the project, it is necessary to calculate the global personnel budget. For this, it is important to have the following information: number of people by position number in the organizational structures, and monthly gross salary. Monthly gross salary. Um, Second step. legal